Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the SIMGOT EM6L. This is the latest IEM from SIMGOT, this time around a 1+4 hybrid, and an IEM which once again has done justice to the success story that SIMGOT has been living over the last couple of months. They've launched IEM after IEM, which is very well tuned. Fair enough, they're all following the Harman curve, the 2019 Harman curve, but they've all also got a slight SIMGOT touch to them. And you know, the EM6L is doing precisely the same thing. Basically, it is a continuation of what we started out on the EA500, which is this IEM over here, the EA500. This was released earlier this year. EA500, you know, has a DLC driver of very high quality, and you know, metal shell, adjustable nozzles, you know, interchangeable nozzles with a slight change in the tuning, especially in the mids, upper mids, and highs. And this came in and disrupted the market. I mean, for the $79, it performs quite easily against IEMs costing $200 and more. Fantastic in terms of its overall detail, capability, you know, technicalities. There were some complaints of people that said it was a little bit bass light. Some people were saying that it was a little bit too energetic in the 5-6K area. Personally, I never found that. I think it's an absolutely fantastic IEM, very well tuned, doesn't offend me. I've actually got even a second one, which I slightly retuned, which was something that many have done, so much so that SIMGOT is even offering now a retune kit for the EA500. But the truth is that the EA500 has somewhat been a game changer and put SIMGOT definitely in the map. They then launched the EW100, which I don't have here, which is a budget IEM, which you know, is more focused on the up to $20 bracket, and without a doubt it's a reference in that price range, definitely. And then lately, more recently, they launched the EW200, which is this one over here, also metal shell, focus, there we go, metal shell, really nice fit, again fantastic sound. It is in essence it's basically an EA500 with supposedly more bass. I mean, graphically it does look like it, although to my ears, when I listen to it and I compare it to the 500, the 500 still comes out on top. It still sounds that it's got more bass. But anyway, what was novel about the EW200 was the fact that they used a novel diaphragm material, which is basically a combination of the DLC diaphragm that we usually see them using quite frequently with LCP, so combination of diamond-like carbon and liquid crystal polymer, and they created what they call the SCP, a silicon crystal plasma driver. And you know, it is a very high quality driver. That's without doubt. Some people have kind of mentioned that, you know, the high is a little bit too much, but honestly, again, I didn't find it to be in any way offensive or aggressive or harsh or anything of the sort. If I have to make a quick comparison between the two, I still find that this is more polished and this has better bass, and that's why this comes out on top. But the truth is, at under $50, this has become a reference. So, you know, SIMGOT has basically given us 3 IEMs at 3 price points, which are references: the EW100 up to 20, this up to 50, the EW200, and the EA500 up to $100 or even more is definitely a reference. I mean, this is the first IEM that I have heard that I can say gave me the same kind of vibe and goosebumps that I got when I first got my 10th gem oxygen. Obviously, I'm talking about single DD. Okay, so this was the first single DD that really kind of impressed me that much. I was really impressed, especially when I considered the price. So anyway, back to the EM6L. Box is a simple affair, very classy, very typical of SIMGOT. You remove the sleeve underneath. Sorry, well, the name of the IEM is the Phoenix. You open that up. The IEMs came over there. Underneath that, we got a little box with the ear tips, and inside this box came the remaining accessories: a cable, some paperwork, and the carrying case. So I'll show you those, which is what we want to see. The carrying case is one that we've already seen on the 500. You know, really nice, simple, does its job, not too big. The cable is nice in terms of its look, but I actually measured the cable and it didn't really measure too well. It's not that it sounds bad, but the truth is I added this XINHS cable to it, and this XINHS cable completely changed the character of the EM6 in a very positive manner. So I actually think that this cable is somewhat a little bit of a hindrance to showcase the full potential of the M6 The M6 is currently being sold by LINSOUL at $109. So as far as I know, they are the only ones that carry it. And then the tips, which are like these tips, very similar to LITZ tips, and I'm actually using these same tips on the EM6 because it works fine. There was no need to change. All right, okay, that's that out of the way. As for the EM6, what can I say? It's a resin shell with kind of a metal faceplate. It's got the nice Phoenix logo on there, well identified left and right. You know, very easy. Weighs next to nothing. I mean, especially when you compare it to the EA500, this thing weighs nothing. Fits very, very nicely. No such issues with regards to the fit. Actually, none of them, to be honest. Fits flawlessly, isolates flawlessly. Absolute pleasure. It's non-fatiguing in terms of its fitment and weight. Nothing. It's really ergonomically they did their job. All right. Anyway, let's get now into what we want to know is what does the EM6 sound like. So obviously I had to have the EW1, the EW200, the EA500. It made just sense because of the evolution that we can see in the sound of these IEMs. And then I just selected two. I mean, if you guys want more comparisons, I'll definitely do. I can do a comparison with the Celeste Phoenix Call when it's officially launched, or even before that. It doesn't really matter. I've already done some reviews on it, so it's not really an issue, but I can do a comparison with that, and whatever other IEMs that you guys would like me to compare it, I can definitely do. So I've got here the 10 Shimkara 1+4, $169 more or less, and I've got here as well the EPZ Q5, about $50, single DD. And why is it this one here? Well, because it's got a very similar sound to the EA500 and to the EW200, so I thought it made sense based on that, because it also serves then as a basis to understand what sort of sound the EM6 has. The Cara, I have a job because it's one of my favorite IEMs in the under $200 price bracket for a hybrid. Fair enough, I could have had the full, the Performance 5, I could have had the Jazeera 41T, I could have had a whole bunch of them, but I wanted something which kind of had a similar signature to as well the other ones that I've got here presented. Getting straight into the sound, the moment you put the EM6L into your ears, the thing that I think will impress you straight away is how clean and detailed it is. It is absolutely surreal, the amount of cleanliness the sound has and detail the sound has. And when you consider that this is a BA, they've done it so well that the very, very few times that I noticed the BA timbre, it was so mild and so relaxed that it begs the question to should I even mention the existence of BA timbre, because it is so acceptable considering the price that it has, the $109, that I would rather just say no, it hasn't got any BA timbre. So that's the first thing that will strike you when you listen to it. It's how clean and detailed. It's just everything is very spacious, everything is very big sounding, okay? Which is the same thing that you basically get with the EA500 and to a certain extent with the EW200 as well. Different levels of polish on all of these three, but that's the vibe you get here. Starting from the bottom, from the bass. Bass, it's a clean, detailed bass. Not a bass monster, no, but it's got plenty rumble, plenty slam for what it is as well. And again, I want to just say, I feel that the driver used in here is not a 10mm driver. That's how I feel. Why do I say this? Because graphically it graphs higher than these other two, and not necessarily does that graphing higher translate to having higher output. No. And then just the overall timbre, the tonality, the way it slams, it doesn't sound like a 10mm or 11mm driver. Not, well, these use 10mm, but it doesn't sound like a bigger driver. It sounds like a slightly smaller driver. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's the perception I get, okay? But anyway, the bass is a very good quality bass. It's got plenty extension, can go down low. Slam is decent, could be a little bit better, but it's decent. I mean, this is me now really kind of nitpicking, but you know, one of the songs that I use to see if it's got good slam or not is From Dusk to Dawn from George Duke, and it does it fine. You know, it doesn't sound thin, it doesn't sound lacking in any way. So if it does that song fine, you know, that's it. That I'm good. Mids and the transition from the mid bass into the mids is flawless. No bleed, no nothing. It's just flawless. Very although graphically you might think there is, but no, there is nothing. It is squeaky clean, in my opinion. You know, just faultless. Male vocals are amazing, female vocals super clean, super detailed, and then the transition then from the mids into the upper mids into the treble, once again done in absolutely perfect manner. It is it's a highly detailed IEM, you know, but it never becomes fatiguing. That's I don't know. It's just the way that they've been able to really hit the nail on the head and tune it properly. In terms of its technicalities, fantastic. Very airy, very big. It sounds huge in terms of you know. The perception that it gives. Is it genuine, or is it because of the amount of treble that it has? I guess you could say it's a little bit of both, but it's got plenty soundstage, really big, really very stadium like kind of. Imaging is spot on, detailed retrieval is absolutely fantastic, nothing to be said. And then in terms of its resolution, so on, again, faultless. I cannot, for the price, honestly, I cannot fault it. I just can't. It's because it does everything very well and to a very high standard. I was listening to the EM6 well, I've had it for like 2 weeks now, and I was listening to it countless times, and I was just impressed at how much more cleaner, I apologize if my English isn't the ideal, but how much more cleaner, how much more detailed it actually is compared to IEMs that I have costing way more money. In terms of timbre and tonality, which is it's probably my number one point that I always look for. It is a good timbre and tonality. However, it can sometimes be a little bit too clinical. And when it's a little bit too clinical, it just loses that warmness that I like. But you know, once again, it's correct. Instruments sound correct. You know, there's no real wrong reproduction of guitars or of cymbals. Everything sounds very natural, very true. Only you know, like let me see here, a song that I found that to come across a little bit as colored. Twilight from Brian Simpson was perhaps, I apologize for the noise. Twilight from Brian Simpson was perhaps one of the few songs that I got the feeling that it was just a little bit false. But it was so minor that honestly, this is me really kind of nitpicking. On the opposite end of that, songs like Bijou from Jeff Lobner, or Spring of Life from Daniel Garcia Trio, or Mediterranean Sunrise from Andreas Razzuti, absolutely fantastic. I mean, fantastic. And going back to that issue of it not being a bass monster, you know, surprisingly, it actually did much better than what I would think. Free for All from Rhythm and Sound, or Mash Down Babylon from Rhythm and Sound as well. Very bass heavy songs. Fantastic. It has more than enough weight in that department. All right. I guess that kind of puts the position of the EM6. Compare then to these. What can I say? Well, it's not going to be a difficult one. This is highly detailed, very detailed. Maybe sometimes it gets a little bit too clinical and it loses a little bit that warmness, that lushness. This is equally highly detailed, supposedly has less bass than the EW200, but not so. I find it to have a little bit more bass or better tonality overall in the bass. The drivers are kind of similar. One is just DLC, the other one is DLC and LCP. So I guess there is some commonality here in the drivers somehow. If not for the fact that they are a good quality driver on either one of these IEMs. Overall, I consider the EA500 a polished up EW200. It's polished. It just does the upper mids and highs in a much more mature manner. Not that this driver isn't capable. I'm sure that this driver is also capable of that. It's just the way that it's being tuned. All right. Okay. So how does then the EM6 stand next to them? Well, the EM6 is the most relaxed out of the two. Out of these two, it's the most relaxed. It's got equally the same amount of detail retrieval and twinklies and sparklies. Everything is there, just like on its two siblings. However, it just does it in a very, very polished manner. So if the clinical sound of the EW200 would get to you, or would be something that maybe you wouldn't look very favorably at, this doesn't have any of that. So this is way more tonally correct than that. Tonally and timbre way more compared to the EA500. The EA500 at certain volumes, it's very much give and take, but then there are occasions that yes, the EA500, not that it bothered me, but I can safely say that with some people at certain volume levels, it was too much, and okay, that then could be an obstacle which the EM6 doesn't have. The EM6 just sounds absolutely faultless. Once the pinna gain peak is reached, it just drops off very smoothly. Everything's just very, very well tuned. Honestly, nothing really that I can falter. So if you ask me, is it an upgrade? Yes. If the EW100, if it was here, has on the EW200 its upgrade, and then consequently the EA500 is an upgrade over the EW200, I can safely say that the EM6 is a upgrade over the SIMGOT EA500. It is because it gives you basically the same thing that the EA500 gives us, but it does it with a little bit more class, a little bit more cleanliness. Well, not really clean. It just does it with more class, with more smoothness, it's more buttery. I think that's the best word here. This is the most buttery out of all of these. Okay, this is the most clinical. This is a kind of an in-between, and this is the one that's the most buttery compared to the Cara and to the Q5. Well, compared to the Cara beats it in terms of the bass department, not only quantity but quality of the bass. It's got a little bit better quality, a little bit more rumbles. Not a huge difference, mind you, but it does. So that department, it beats the EM6. In the mids and highs, everything changes around. I think that the Cara has got plenty detail for a smooth, suave presentation. It has. However, I feel that it's not so much that it can't do what this can do, but it's just the fact that it's being tuned to be even more relaxed, more laid back than what the EM6 is. And obviously that has good points going for it. I mean, the fact that you don't notice any DA timbre as well on the Cara, is very, very good. It's a testament to how well the BAs have been tuned. So what's the story then? Who comes out on top? Well, ultimately the EM comes out on top because we are talking about a $60 to $70 price difference, and that's something that the Cara just cannot compete. The Cara would have to be an absolute beast in terms of the sound to just completely destroy the EA500, which it doesn't do that. It's got really great bass, yes. The mid bass and the lower mids, I will also probably give it there, but then this just takes over completely. I mean, the amount of detail is absolutely surreal. And then finally the Q5. The Q5 is kind of an in between these two. So it doesn't have, it has a bass which is more similar to the bass of the A500, although it graphs like the EW200. And what that means compared to this here is that it's got a little bit more fullness, than the EM6, much like the EA500 also has. Okay, this is the one that sounds the leanest. Okay, this one no. In terms of mids and upper mids and highs, very similar here to these two, especially to the EA500, very similar to the EA500. And so, I mean, it gets beaten by the EM6 because the EM6 does everything in a more smooth manner, in a more, it's not that it's more detailed, it just does things in a very, very chilled out and relaxed manner. Anyway, guys, that's my take here on the EM6L. Solid, really solid IEM. Very much an IEM that will appeal to those that like vocals, instrumentals. That this shines absolutely there. Although it does have enough bass to complement other music genres, and like you've seen in my playlist, if you've looked at it before, I've got a wide variety of music, so it's more than capable in that department. Treble as well, very high quality, so no real issues there. So my rec would be, have a listen to it. Definitely have a listen to it. And then, if it satisfies, if it ticks the right boxes, definitely get it. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Okay. You take care now. Bye-bye. Hi, guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the EM6L. Straight away, what I have here, these two graphs are the EM6L, but with different tips. The red is using the large size stock tips, and the green is using the small size. The small size allows for a deeper insertion, and ultimately you get a more linear response all the way down. Harmon curve through and through, 3K peak, very relaxed and smooth peanut gain, basically flat by 300 hertz. I mean, there's no real bleed into the mids. It is, if there's one thing that's very noticeable, is the cleanliness of the sound, and the quality of the overall bass is very, very evident. You would think that by having all this bass energy that this would be maybe a more bass heavy IEM, and no, it isn't. I'm suspecting that maybe the driver they are using is not a 10mm driver, it's probably a smaller driver. And actually, when I show you now the following graphs, you probably understand what I'm saying. Anyway, this is the EM6L, okay, with the small size tips. The next one I'm going to show you now is the EA500. Let me just change the color here to something that stands out a little bit more. There we go. The EA500, graphically, it seems that there's a huge difference in terms of the bass. While when you actually hear it, yes, you do feel that there's a little bit maybe extra sub bass on the EM, but the difference is not what the graph shows. I still feel that the bass of the EA500 is absolutely fantastic. Quality wise, very, very good, and quantity wise as well. I mean, even this small little roll off that it has, this is negligible, truthfully. As for the rest, very similar. As you can see, a very, very similar curve. The difference that you notice between the two of them is that the EM, because it has the BAs, does have that BA typical characteristic of really being extra clean, which it's going to be a difficult one because we are talking about the EA500, and that's one of its strong points. But you notice there's a slight little more polish, a slight little more finesse in the way that the mids, the upper mids, and the highs are done. You also do not, I'm using the red tip on the EA500, by the way. You also don't notice that peakiness that some people complain about in the 3 to 5K area. You don't notice it as some people noticed it on the EA500, although graphically, as you can see, I mean, with the red tip, that's basically non-existent. Anyway, that's the EA500 for you. The next one I'm going to show you now is the EW200. Let me put the EW200 there into the equation. Just change the color to black so it stands out. Okay. The EW200, as you can see again, look, compared to the A500, they're basically the same thing. The driver is a similar driver, DLC, LCP, combination, very similar. What you do notice is that it has a little bit more bass, but I don't think it's the driver's fault, actually. I think it's probably the way that it was tuned, or the shell or something. The EA500 for me still sounds cleaner. Nevertheless, that's just my opinion. As compared to the EM, it shows that it has less bass, but that's not the case. It's about the same thing. And again, the biggest difference between the two is the polish of the reproduction. Otherwise, the frequency response is very, very similar. Next one I'm going to show you is the EPZ Q5. Once again, a very similar curve to the EM6. A very nice sounding IEM. When we compare, if I have to compare it to the let me just quickly take away the EM. If I compare the EPZ, the Q5 to the EW200, you can see a very big similarity. The EA500 again, a very big similarity. And the truth is, you listen to any one of these three IEMs and you get a very similar vibe in terms of how the mids are done, the highs, the overall timbre, very similar, okay? But we want here just the EA500, the EM6L. Compared to the EM6L, again, the EM6L is just more polished. It's just more refined in the way that it does the mids and the highs. The bass, honestly, it ends up being very similar between this, between the EM6 and the Q5, the EW200. The similarities are very much there. It's just more case of probably ultimate quantity, really. Okay, and finally, compared to the Cara. Let me just change the color here of the Cara to something which stands out more. This is the one that probably has a graph that is a little bit more different. Okay, you have this kind of tucking bass instead of a gliding bass, although then the mids are very similar. What I did notice was obviously the EM5, the EM6, my apologies, does have way more extension. So there's more treble energy. There's more air up top than compared to the Cara. The Cara sounds it's not dark, but by comparison it sounds dark. However, the Cara does have a 10mm dynamic driver, and although it seems here that it doesn't have as much oomph down low, no, it's got more guts. It's got more weight in the lower frequencies. Anyway, this is my take on the EM6L. I think it's an absolutely fantastic IEM. In terms of hybrids, it's gonna bring some problems to other existing hybrids, just mainly because it has an absolutely killer price. $109 for this type of performance is just surreal. And on top of having a really good price, it plays well. It is a very nice sounding IEM. Fair enough. Probably it will be appreciated more by those that like detail and like nice vocals and so on and so forth, and musical and separation, and probably those people will appreciate it more than those that are just wanting an IEM to thump. But the reality is very simple. This is a well-tuned, well-built IEM that, honestly, with my music genre, I didn't have any really criticisms. I never found it to be sibilant or aggressive or harsh. A very well implemented BA application with very little or no BA timbre, to be honest. If I have to consider the price point, especially. And that's it. All right. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask. All right. You take care now. Bye bye.